targets. I'm talking about general targets here that we're not going to go into because they're going to unfold as this campaign continues.
How long do you think the campaign lasts?
Weeks, not days.
General, lastly, do you target the oil?
Say again?
Do you target their oil?
I'm not getting into the specific target list like that.
General Jack Keane, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Historic time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, General. Democratic Senator John Fetterman praising President Trump for doing, quote, what's right and necessary to produce real peace in the region. He sits on the Homeland Security Committee and joins us now. Senator, thanks so much for getting up this morning.
Yes.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you.
So, Senator, there are some on your side of the aisle, and to be frank, some of Republicans that don't agree with this action as well. But you support the president's action here. Why?
Well, because that was always the right thing. I mean, you can just put out, tweets and statements, to support peace, but to actually create real peace, you have to do these kinds of actions just like happened. Just like last year, too, when they to destroy their nuclear facilities. Sometimes peace is possible after these kinds of steps, and that's why I support those things. And I listened to my colleague from South Carolina earlier, and I even had the option, to talk to him before the State of the Union speech, and I encouraged it as well. And so I fully support these kinds of things, and I'm proud to stand with our military and Israel through this, and that was the right thing.
Yeah, you posted on X, you said Operation Epic Fury, President Trump has been willing to do what's right and necessary to produce real peace in the region. God bless the United States, our great military, and Israel. You have others like Thomas Massie who wrote this: acts of war unauthorized by Congress. The U.S. is attacking Iran, according to the AP. What is your response to Massie and to your colleagues who don't agree with this?
That's bizarre. I'd like to remind my colleague over in the House that Iran massacred 30,000 of their own people right now. This war is not about the Iranian people. It's about this poisonous regime. And that's why I'm proud to stand with our military. I'm proud to stand with Israel, too. I might be a Democrat, but in this specific case, the president is absolutely correct to do these kinds of actions. And now we have Israel's back. And now that's why it's entirely the path for peace in that region. How many treaties, how much negotiation? I never thought they would work. Iran has only ever responded to these kinds of things. And now here we are right now, and they have the opportunity, real peace, and to change their way, committed to trying to destroy Israel and destabilizing the entire region. These were things are necessary.
Senator, it's the first time we've ever had sustained joint action with Israel, and their military, pound for pound, as good as any in the world. They've been very impressive. We watched what they've done in the last 3 years. But you know who's not there? Our European allies. France, really a benign statement. The UK makes it clear that they're not part of this operation. Do they not understand what's happened since 1979? Do they not care about 35,000 people dead on the hands of their own regime? But they were quick to condemn what's happening in Gaza, what they claimed was happening in Gaza. Your thoughts about the disparity?
I agree. There were hostages held underground in Gaza, and they now were calling to recognize Palestine. So I'm not surprised that they might kind of say these kinds of meaningless kinds of statement. They should all just lean in on now and stand with America and Israel through this. Why can't we all agree that the Iranian regime has to fall? And now the only thing the Iranian regime clearly can do is just kill its own people, and they were committed to do that. So for me, if these allies can just kind of back away or say, I wasn't involved on that, well, that's entirely to them. But that's why America and Israel had to make this choice. And for me, it's really easy, and it's just about country over party, but it's also about peace over just empty kinds of treating and those kinds of negotiations that never worked since 1979.
So, Senator, we're getting notice from reports that Marco Rubio did call the Gang of Eight to give them a heads up that this operation was happening. From a congressional standpoint, What do you want to hear from the administration about, since this has the potential of lasting weeks, what do you want to hear from them?
Well, I mean, if we don't know how long it would last, but I would look back what happened in June when Israel had the war against Iran, and it took just a couple days for Iran to beg for a ceasefire. Israel was able to achieve air supremacy after like 2 to 3 days. So, we see how long will last. But now America here right now is in the part of that. And Iran targets were being effectively picked off. And now I think I even saw a report where Iranian people were laughing when they saw a report that the leader's compound was just obliterated to part of it.
I'm seeing that too on social media.
The supreme leader.
Yeah. So we were told that we were going in to strike the ballistic missile sites to make sure they don't have these ballistic missiles, that they're not working on an intercontinental missile that could target us, and that Israel was going in to attack the commanders, the Ayatollah, the president, and some of their people, some of the leaders. What is your knowing? And we heard General Jack Keane say the intel on these individuals is so, quote, exquisite, he said. He said he didn't want to go into it, but we know where these individuals are. Did they have time? Do you think we got them? And if we did, when would we hear that? And it wasn't really a secret that this was going to happen. There were rumblings all over the news. We all knew that this could happen after the State of the Union address. But when will we find out if they were if they were killed? And how much do you think they stayed in their homes and wherever, or did they go to hiding?
Well, what I do know, what's the fact that the Israeli intelligence is outstanding always. Look exactly what they did last year. They didn't have to take out the entire building. They actually took out the guys' bedrooms, and they just eliminated all the nuclear scientists and the leadership throughout all that. That's a demonstration of Israel's capabilities. And now we have here America standing there where a lot of the kinetic kinds of brute force in that region as well now too. I think that partnership, whether the Israeli intelligence and that kind of very specific kinds of things, and the American firepower there, that's what seems to be pretty effective right now thus far here.
Senator, thanks for putting the country over party. Senator. Always great to have you on. And I look forward to talking to you along the way, because this will be a sustained campaign. It's not going to be days. It's going to be weeks. Senator John Fetterman from Pennsylvania. Thank you.
Senator.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Let's bring in retired Vice Admiral and Navy SEAL Robert Harward. He grew up actually in Iran, led invasions in Afghanistan and Iraq, and is a member of the GENSA's Iran Policy Project, and he joins us now live from the UAE. We have all been excited to talk to you because of your knowledge of this area, growing up in Iran, and everything that you have done. What was your reaction? What comes to mind?
I think like 90 million Iranian people, were cheering. This has been long overdue. And I got to reinforce the comments my shipmate, Senator Graham, made. This is unprecedented change in geopolitical aspects that we've never seen. The transition of this evil regime is long overdue. And you have to remember, after Russia, after China 1.4 million people, Russia 150 million. Iran is a country of 90 million people, the third largest nation in the world of oppressed people. And so you've had, never before have we seen so few, the Ayatollahs, 120,000, IRGC and the Basij oppressing so many. So unprecedented moral high ground for what we're doing. So not only were they center of proliferation of terrorism, killing our people around the world, but they've just oppressed this population for 50 years, and that's come to a screaming halt. So this campaign, which is focused first on the missiles and the straits to ensure they cannot project power and threaten our bases and our allies in the region, once that's done, this campaign can go on for a long time. But I'm convinced this administration, President Trump, will not stand and will not end until this regime is gone. And I think the other really key point to take in from his speech, his offer of immunity to the professional armed forces to turn on the IRGC is unprecedented and shows how novel and astute this administration is. If once they are unable to project power, it's all about what will happen on the ground of Iran. And that offer of immunity is probably your greatest and quickest path to peace.
So, Admiral, to follow up on that, what's the next step with that? Because obviously, the president with the United States and Israel have leveled the playing field when it comes from the air. But do we get those people on the ground weapons? Do those folks that want the immunity turn their weapons over to the protesters and take over? Like, how do we level the playing field for them?
Great question. And I go back into history. In 1979, when it fell before, the Shah was using his regime to suppress the people who were in the streets. Thanks to outreach by President Carter and his military at that time, they had a delegation to come to Tehran. I was there when they did that and told them, hey, look, if you use your army to suppress us, we're going to pull out. Well, now we're completely opposite. The president has made an offer to the Artish, the professional armed forces, the army, not the IRGC, to be a part of the long-term future of Iran. And so if they're not going to do this, once we've mitigated the risk from missiles, we will focus more specifically on the IRGC and those elements that will not be part of the future. So that could be very tactical, providing arms, but it also could be very strategic with further strikes. So all those options are on the table. And again, I believe this offer of immunity and then validation of it to those leaders who want to be a part of the future of Iran and who do not have blood on their hands is the quickest and most peaceful way of transitioning. And as we saw in 79, that happened in a matter of weeks. So this campaign will only accelerate the inspiration to those who want to be a part of the future and who have not been part of the murder and genocide. And I hope that will make this a very quick solution in a matter of weeks, not months, and prevent future bloodshed.
So, Admiral, the other thing is not only were they killing the protesters, they were killing them in the hospital rooms. They were going up to the families of the dead citizens and saying, you're not getting the bodies back unless you pay us for the bullets we had to use to kill them. That's how vicious these people are. But are you still in touch with anyone in Iran? And if they don't have guns, what would they need to take their country back?
Well, again, yes, I am I get texts and messages.
So what do they say?
My friends who are in the country, some I went to school with. And so I haven't heard from them today. I'm sure I will in short order. But there are a lot of ways. I think most important, just as you've noted and others, this cooperation, not only in military offensive capabilities, but intelligence, those networks on the grounds who can identify where the center of gravity is, where the players in IRGC. So once we've taken care of the missile strikes, the more we hit and strike those will provide further impetus to the Iranian people to use knives or whatever's necessary. Right. But if you get the armed forces to turn, that becomes, again, the easiest way to do. If that doesn't work, and now with the attrition, all this other military capability, the ability to supply arms and other enablers to the population is on the table. I'm sure that's part of this joint cooperative intelligence between the U.S. and Israel that now will be called upon to make this transition as quick and bloodless as possible.
Yeah, the CIA would be a huge help along with the Mossad. Thanks so much, Admiral. I know it's an exciting time for you and your family. Maybe one day you can get back there soon. Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Our next guest flew F-22s, retired U.S. Marine Corps officer and Top Gun instructor. Dave Burke joins us now. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me back.
Thank you for coming on again. Thank you, first of all, for your service. Tell us about this mission. How are we accomplishing this?
Well, listen, I'm learning a lot as we go, as you see, but it is so clear to me that what you have right now is the full array of capability, trained, equipped, in place, with the recent history of being successful and a ton of confidence that the equipment we have can do exactly what it needs to do. And that's what's playing out. It is plain as day that that's what's playing out.
You know, David, can you speak to the soldier right now? What's going through their minds? Because, you know, there's a lot of chatter online about the families. Obviously, you know, all of us have talked about we're praying for our troops, the men and women that's doing this job to protect our country. What's going through their mind right now with an operation like this?
I love that question. Listen, none of us in the military, former and current, want war. We don't want to go to war. In fact, we want to avoid it. But if we get to a position where that is our only option, the best thing we can do for our men and women in uniform is give them not just the training, not just the equipment, but the support and the confidence and the belief. So I think what you have right now is people in uniform knowing that we support them and believe in them, and they're in a position to do their jobs and be successful. That breeds a ton of confidence.
So we're looking at an operation now depending heavily on the air. This is going to be an air campaign. This is not Iraq. There's no ground component. When you have the USS Ford, you have all the naval assets in the area. You have 40,000 there. How do you coordinate the skies with another nation?
Yeah, this is a massive logistical effort, and you're bringing to bear the most capable aircraft in the world in the history of combat. And to be able to do it with our closest allies, who also, as you mentioned earlier, bring the most capable aircraft to bear, that's a ton of work, that's a ton of training, but this is a logistical and support effort that's been built over time. We're not just figuring this out today. This has been planned and coordinated, and the interaction between us, Israel, and our air forces, right now it looks like it's pretty seamless, and that's built on all the work that's been done to get us to this point.
You know, Dave, I remember with Operation Midnight Hammer, which was last June, the president, remember he came out and he released those images and we saw the actual strikes on the nuclear facility with the B-2 bombers. Will we see that? Will we have something similar to that? Because what we're seeing now is this.
Not much.
Yeah, exactly. We're not seeing much. When will we see the results from what our military did today?
Yeah, I think you will see that over time. Just about every strike we conduct, we are using precise GPS, laser-guided, very accurate weapons, and we get a lot of what we call BDA, Battle Damage Assessment. We get real-time feedback. I'm sure right now in the very early stages, they're going through that, but eventually I think that's going to be released. And just like we saw last summer, and Brian and I talked about that in great detail as it happened, you're going to see the visual feedback of what we're doing, and I think we're going to get a lot of that on display.
Dave, if you could stand by, because we're getting some breaking news with Trey Yingst. There's sirens in Jerusalem right now. Trey, what do you have on the ground?
Yeah, Lawrence, right now we are in Israel's second largest city of Tel Aviv, and you can hear those sirens in the distance. This is an indication of more incoming Iranian ballistic missile fire. It's been back and forth for the Israeli population going in and out of bomb shelters today. The Iranians have been targeting a lot of the northern part of Israel, specifically the city of Haifa that sits along the coast. But also, as you heard those sirens there just at the beginning of our report, it's an indication that they are still firing on central Israel. And so as this back and forth takes place, the Israeli air defense systems remain on high alert. You have the Iron Dome and David Sling, but you also have some of the bigger systems, the Arrow 2 and 3 systems, that help to shoot down this incoming fire. At the moment, right now, it doesn't appear that there are any interceptions right overhead. But earlier today, you saw as these streams of white smoke will fly through the sky. And you can see on your screen there, that's exactly what it looks like over Tel Aviv when these missiles get intercepted. There are around 300,000 people that live in Israel's second largest city and the surrounding areas. And additionally, you have across the country nearly 10 million people that have remained in shelters. The Iranians also at this hour are still firing on Gulf countries. There were more missiles intercepted over Doha, Qatar. The United Arab Emirates has condemned the strikes against their country. And as our Jennifer Griffin was reporting earlier, this is seen by many analysts in the region as a massive mistake by the Iranians, immediately responding by striking Gulf countries. And in the distance, I can hear some interceptions. And again, with just the center part of Israel, given the missile shrapnel that comes down when these missiles are intercepted, they basically send everyone into shelters. And in the distance, you hear the very faint pops, and those are the interceptions that are taking place. Again, the latest information that we have here from Israel, there is ongoing ballistic missile fire from the Iranian regime, but the Israelis have been able to neutralize some of the Western launchers in Iran. A big blast there that you just heard, and it just echoes throughout the city. From our vantage point, we can't see these specific interceptions. Some of them just south of the city, it sounds like, that are taking place as we speak, while the Israelis come under more ballistic missile fire in response to the U.S. and Israeli strikes against Iran. Guys.
This is what I wrote down this morning. I wrote 5:33 a.m. because I was watching you when Griff was anchoring the show. Air raid sirens sounding in Tel Aviv. Trey puts on bulletproof vest. Your camera guy gave you that. 2 missile interceptors flying over to shoot down ballistic missiles from Iran. We heard the loud explosions as missiles are shot down in the distance. So I see you keep looking off to your left. You're looking in the air. I'm sure you're for your own safety, but also to see if anything's coming and intercepted. Has anything made it through? Is everyone safe? We were reporting at the beginning of our show a few hours ago there were no fatalities in Israel.
Yeah, there have been no fatalities reported in Israel so far. This has been quite different than the 12-day war last summer. There are a few light injuries, we understand, in the north and some impact sites of shrapnel. But largely, Israel's air defense systems have been doing a good job of shooting down the incoming fire. Remember, they also have the support of the American systems, the THAAD and Patriot missile defense batteries, and also the USS Gerald R. Ford, which is currently off the coast of Haifa in the north of Israel, to help to shoot down any of the incoming fire. Because this was a joint effort and there were months of coordination taking place with the Israelis and the Americans planning for this very scenario, they have been able to neutralize much of the ballistic missile threat on the western part of Iran, and that has led to a relatively stable defense mechanism so far in this conflict. Guys?
All right, Trey, thanks so much. Let's bring in former Israeli government spokesman Ilan Levy. He joins us live from Tel Aviv. Ilan, you're back in the shelter. It's almost as where you guys spent the last couple of years. What are your thoughts right now? What are you hearing? What's the attitude amongst the people among you?
I am down in the shelter together with all of my neighbors and random people who've come in off the street because the Iranian regime is targeting Tel Aviv with ballistic missiles again. Now, look, no one here wants to be running into these shelters, but they are amazed by President Trump's decision. The decision to attack the Iranian regime now is the biggest, boldest, bravest decision by any American president possibly ever. President Trump saw a historic opportunity and seize the moment. He understands this is what peace through strength looks like. You cannot let the Iranian regime continue to provoke the free world to cry death to America, death to Israel, and expect to get away with it. Now, I know that this decision is making a lot of very bad, sad people very upset now. But this is really an extraordinary example of American leadership, and everyone here is calling it epic. I've heard even biblical.
And Ilan, isn't this also demonstrated? I mean, you're in a shelter right now because the Iranians right now are targeting civilians. Our reporting says that, Israel, the United States, we didn't target any civilians. We went after military sites, missile sites, as well as leaders in the government there that had been causing chaos. But they're targeting normal people in Israel, right?
And this is the difference between the U.S.-Israel alliance and the Islamic regime in Iran that we are fighting together. Israel and the U.S. are going after nuclear facilities, ballistic missiles, regime targets, regime officials, and the Iranian regime is targeting Israeli cities. They're shooting ballistic missiles and forcing families with kids, pregnant women, elderly people to run down the stairs to seek shelter. And so Israelis understand that there may be a very difficult price ahead. We don't want war, but we can't afford a nuclear Iran that would pursue this kind of aggression, feeling emboldened with nuclear weapons to attack not only Israel, but American targets and our other friends in the region.
So the one big difference now is you don't have any rockets from Hamas in Gaza that I know of, and Hezbollah has said if there was an attack, they were going to stay out of it. Have you heard any reports that there's some rockets, missiles coming from Lebanon?
This is not the war that the Iranian regime was expecting. The Ayatollahs surrounded Israel with a ring of fire, a circle of proxy armies so that they could protect their nuclear program. The Ayatollahs wanted to build a nuclear weapon and stop Israel and the United States from attacking because they knew that we'd get rockets from Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. And right now they are nowhere to be seen because Israel, with terrific American support, especially under this administration, cut Hamas down to size, degraded Hezbollah and are attacking it every day, eliminated the leaders of the Houthis who have been attacking American ships.
Elon, sorry to interrupt you because we're going to reset at 9. We have about 30 more seconds. For all those people that are behind you, how long will y'all stay there? I see a child behind you. And was everyone in that room in support of this? Were they cheering for this and excited?
This is the 5th or 6th time we've had to run into shelter today, and we will be here till we get an alert on our phones from the army saying it's safe to leave. You can see people are anxious, but everyone is calm. It's an emergency. But Israelis are used to emergencies.
Elon Levy, absolutely, especially after the last few years. Thanks so much. And if you do want peace, Iran is the problem that keeps Hamas funded and armed. Absolutely.
That's right. We're praying for you.
Yes, we are.
Thank you.
Praying for our troops as well.
That's right.
Israeli troops as well. Thank you so much, Elon. Fox News Alert, welcome to the 9 a.m. hour of Fox and Friends Weekend. If you're just now joining us this morning, we've been following the major conflict unfolding right now across the Middle East. The United States and Israel trading blows with Iran after launching a massive military offensive named Operation Epic Fury.
So the U.S. and Israel are now at war with Iran for the second time in 8 months as Israel seeks to take out the Iranian leadership, reportedly demolishing the Ayatollah's compound in Tehran.
And in response, Iran is attacking U.S. interests in the Middle East and launching missiles at Israel, where air raid sirens sounded just a few minutes ago. Overnight, President Trump issuing a statement promising to wipe out their military capabilities. Here is part of the commander-in-chief's message.
Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime. The regime's proxies have continued to launch countless attacks against American forces stationed in the Middle East in recent years. It's been mass terror, and we're not going to put up with it any longer. They've rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions, and we can't take it anymore. Instead, they attempted to rebuild their nuclear program and to continue developing long-range missiles. We're going to annihilate their Navy. We're going to ensure that the region's terrorist proxies can no longer destabilize the region or the world. So, lay down your arms. You will be treated fairly with total immunity, or you will face certain death. Finally, to the great, proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. America is backing you with overwhelming strength and devastating force. Now is the time to seize control of your destiny and to unleash the prosperous and glorious future that is close within your reach.
We begin with senior White House correspondent Peter Doocy with the very latest. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning. And when we talked to President Trump about this less than 24 hours ago, he was upfront about the risks of this conflict becoming a long-term war. So he ordered these strikes overnight with this in mind.
Is there a risk that strikes could turn into a long, drawn-out conflict in the Middle East?
I guess you could say there's always a risk. You know, when there's war, there's a risk in anything, both good and bad. Look, it'd be wonderful if they'd negotiate really in good conscience, good faith and conscience, but they are not getting there.
And to that point, even though we don't have any reason today to think that American boots would be deployed on the ground in Iran, there are a lot of American servicemen and women in the region supporting this mission by air and by sea.
And I do not make this statement lightly. The Iranian regime seeks to kill. The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in war. But we're doing this not for now. We're doing this for the future, and it is a noble mission.
And President Trump also told me yesterday that nobody here has briefed him in the planning stages of this mission to tell him that these strikes would definitely lead to regime change. He is telling the people of Iran to go and take their government back. But nobody here who has been telling him exactly what steps A, B, C, and D are, has connected the dots about exactly how the regime gets replaced. Now, back to you.
And do we know anything about when the president's going to speak today? Has he told you, or the team told you, what time that will be? When will we start getting videos in to see the attack?
So there was some reporting that there was going to be some kind of a presidential address. We were just in contact with some of the teams down there. There's nothing on the schedule officially right now. They're telling the pool that's traveling with the president in Palm Beach that they don't have to be available until noon. So anything that happens, if the president decides to address the nation again, it would be sometime in the afternoon. But for the rest of the morning, it seems like he and the team are hunkered down there at Mar-a-Lago, in a secure part of Mar-a-Lago that they can set up for something like this, just watching to see exactly what damage has been done and what they should do next.
Hey, Peter, in retrospect, were there some signs that this was going to happen?
There were a lot of signs, because President Trump has said, something that we hear a lot here at the White House is there will be like a 2-week deadline for something. President Trump with this gave a 10-day deadline, and we are about 10 days removed from the president telling the Iranians that he was basically getting fed up. And so the president has been, look, he showed right before the NATO summit last spring that if he thinks the Iranians are getting really close to a nuclear weapon, he will order a huge strike. That's what they did with Midnight Hammer. He said he was going to do it again if they were not satisfied with the negotiations. They were not satisfied with the negotiations. He was saying that publicly, and so maybe it was more obvious than we were led to believe. Yeah.
I apologize. We got sirens again in Israel. Let's bring it back in. Our chief foreign correspondent, Trey Yingst. Trey, what's happening on the ground?
Yeah, just stay with me here. We're going to just check out here. If you can pan out here to the sky, we just had more sirens in central Israel. You can see that missile interceptors just were fired off from a number of directions to try to intercept the incoming ballistic missile fire targeting this city. This is the second round of sirens that we have had in just a matter of minutes. And that smoke that you see there just at the top of the screen is what's left of the contrail from the missile interceptor. As Israel comes under attack from multiple different directions, this is still all coming from the Iranian regime. The proxies from Hezbollah in southern Lebanon or the Houthis in Yemen have not yet fired on Israel, but Israel remains prepared for that possibility. Just to zoom out here in terms of what we know, a senior Israeli official tells Fox News that Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah Khamenei, and Iran's president, Masoud Pezeshkian, you could hear that boom in the distance as these missiles are being intercepted. But those two top individuals in the Iranian regime were targeted, according to this official. And this is an indication that the Americans and the Israelis are going for the more advanced option in terms of what could be done against the regime. And I want to just show you on my phone here, these are the missile alerts that are coming in right now. And they are popping up each second from different areas of Israel. Each one of those lines is a part of the country that is currently taking ballistic missile fire. And you just heard that explosion in the distance. They are intercepting much of this fire just outside of the city limits of Tel Aviv. But it's not just Tel Aviv that is under attack at this moment. The northern city of Haifa is also receiving incoming missile fire. There were sirens earlier today in Jerusalem. And there's a real understanding that while the Iranians are at this point not able to overwhelm Israel's missile defense systems, they can still strike deep into this country. And that is the reason that you see, just with your last guest, Eylon Levy, the former spokesperson for Israel's president, that people are in bomb shelters, millions of them in this country, understanding that this war is just getting started. Guys?
Trey, what is that like? And we can't relate to that because we don't live our lives like that. You're getting alerts, it looks like, constantly. It looks like maybe every second, a few seconds or every minute, because it's on your phone right now. What happens? How do you respond to that? Because obviously you're working right now. You're not going into a shelter, which does make us fear for you. We appreciate you being out there to tell the story to all of us. But what is that like to live? What if you're at work, or what if you're in the hospital and you can't get to a shelter?
Yeah, I want to take you through what the life is like here and what the Israelis think about what's happening as we speak. The Israelis have been at war since October 7th, when Hamas launched that cross-border attack from Gaza. in October of 2023. This led to a domino effect across the region, and it's included thousands of missiles and rockets being fired into this country. Just this morning, when Israel was conducting the initial strikes against Iran, an alert went out on phones that people needed to head to shelters, and then air raid sirens sounded across the entirety of Israel. 10 million people immediately war between Israel and Hamas inside Gaza, create a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. It was the Iranian regime that was unwilling to be flexible enough to create a diplomatic solution. The president gave Iranian leadership an off-ramp so many times. He extended an olive branch. He sent his top negotiators, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, to Oman, to Switzerland, to try to get an agreement together on a number of issues. But the main issue is Iran's nuclear program, because they were pursuing a nuclear weapon, according to analysts here and in the United States. But also Iran's ballistic missile program that they are currently using as we speak against Israel and against U.S. forces in the Gulf. They are launching missiles toward American troops in the Gulf, in Qatar, in Bahrain, in the UAE. And the third thing has to do with their support of these regional proxies like Hezbollah, like the Houthis, like Hamas. And when the president saw the crackdown on demonstrators earlier this year, he says 32,000 people were slaughtered by the Iranian regime, and he promised to help them. And that is what we are seeing here. And the Israeli people largely agree with this operation that is unfolding.
And they know as long as Iran, that regime's in power, there will never be a chance of permanent peace. Thanks so much,
Thanks, Trey.
Thank you, Trey.
Let's bring in Bret Baier, anchor special report. He's taking over here in 55 minutes when we're done. Bret, let's talk about how this thing is playing out. We're not seeing a lot of video of the attacks. We're hearing about a lot of the hits. As we wake up today on a Saturday, how do you think this plays in Washington, D.C.?
Well, we'll see how the battle damage assessment as we get more information. We don't appear to be hearing from President Trump again today. At least that's the word right now out of the White House in Mar-a-Lago. And, you know, I just want to go backwards to how this thing started. The fact that it is daylight and morning hours inside Iran, that's completely different than we've seen the Israelis attack Iran before. It was always over the cloak of darkness. It's when the U.S. in Midnight Hammer in June operated. There's some reporting that this was designed based on intelligence about leadership and gatherings of leadership and knowing where they are or were. And we can confirm that the Ayatollah's, the supreme leader's compound was hit very hard. We just don't know exactly what comes from that. But if you look back at the last time Israel went inside and bombed leadership positions in June, they had intel on the ground about leaders meeting in one room. And then they took out the room and erased a lot of senior leadership for Iran in that June attack. It's very possible that the daylight strike this morning is based on active intelligence that happened based on where those leaders were and meeting.
Good point.
You know, Bret, to that point also, you know, we were expecting, at least the military, the United States and Israel were expecting to hear something from the Houthis or Hezbollah, because they are, in fact, the proxies. Do you think because Israel, with, of course, the support of the United States, have dismantled them so much that that may be the problem here, why we're not seeing rockets coming from those areas? What do you know?
Yeah. people like Senator Lindsey Graham and others, and you've heard Jack Keane say this, that they believe Iran is at its weakest point that it's ever been. And I think you're going to see over the next day or so the superiority in the skies, the ability to control the entire battle space so that they could take out targets, indiscriminately.
The Houthis are in, right? I mean, the Houthis said they declared war on Israel, and they're going to shut off, they're going to start bombing ships again.
Yeah, and that's dangerous because they've done it before and they've not had a ton of success. It's not guided missiles, it's these rockets, but they are dangerous, especially for U.S. troops in the region. The Houthis are less than they were, though, and everybody in the region knows that.
Brett, we've heard from Jennifer Griffin and other reporters that they don't think this is just going to be a one-day event. This is going to take days and days, possibly weeks. But we're used to the video when we saw the operation back in June when President Trump decided to strike the nuclear facilities. And that was a one and done. We're in, we're out. So that's coming to work this morning. I kind of expected maybe that's what was happening since we know where these ballistic missiles are being made. We can go in, we can target those sites and then get out. But apparently that's not the case. Do you have any idea of how this operation's working?
No, I mean, Jennifer's done some great reporting about the different elements being used and the Tomahawk missiles kind of setting the battle space and then specific targets, the Israelis. And it's a full joint operation for the first time. We've used different technology, including drones, one-way drones to attack different facilities. I bet we'll start seeing the videos and the specific targeting stuff that you're used to in coming hours. And I think that they're just being cautious about what we're seeing because, again, it is daylight. There is still an Iranian defense. We just haven't seen anything significant. One thing that was significant is that Iran's first response, some of those missiles they sent out, were at Gulf states, UAE, Bahrain, others. And those countries had put out statements saying this was not the right thing to do for the U.S. and Israel. But now, after being fired on by Iran, you wonder if it changes the dynamic and perhaps they fight back. There was some missile fired at Jordan, Bahrain, the Fifth Fleet, and there's others.
So, Brett, I'm curious because you've been in Washington for a while and you were at the Pentagon before that. I know there's been public statements from elected officials, but do you think this is a moment where there's going to be unity on Capitol Hill to support the president? He's laid out the mission. He's talked about the intelligence that he has. He did brief, according to the reports, Marco Rubio briefed the Gang of Eight to give them notice that this was going to happen. Is this something that they're going to make political, or will this be a moment of unity?
Lawrence, it's a great question. I think he'll probably have a day or two of, calmness as far as the political back and forth, but there will be a push to find out when does this end, what's the ultimate goal, what's the objective, how long will it take. You heard after that Gang of Eight briefing on Capitol Hill, Senator Schumer came out and said the administration needs to make the case to America of what exactly this is about. The president's 8-minute speech was really quite something, and he laid out the predicate. But at the end, it really did sound like regime change, leaving it up to the Iranians to take the baton and take over this country. But he's setting the table for that to happen.
Yeah, the IRGC, I'm very curious in that statement. He said, guys, you can either put your guns down or join, leave the government and live and get immunity, or you will die. So I'm very curious to see if there's going to be any fracture, because we know so little about that closeted regime, any fracture from the Ayatollah, and if they're going to go with the people instead of killing the people. Because if we have protesters in the streets, nothing's really changed to stop the IRGC and the Basij for turning around and mowing them down again.
That's exactly right. And it's a brutal, brutal regime. And as you heard the president, he cited 30,000 and north of that for the killings that we just saw over the recent month or so. And I think, and this is a speculation, that there had to be some knowledge on the ground about some buy-in from some element of the regime much like I think there was in Venezuela
100%.
prior to Maduro being taken out. So I don't know what that looks like. I don't know whether it's Mossad or CIA or some kind of knowledge on the ground beforehand, but I think there is some sense that there's something else to come. We just don't know what it looks like.
Yeah, we heard Lindsey Graham say this might be the most significant event in his lifetime. Explain to the people that are watching at home why that might be. Even the president said what we could be witnessing is the most significant realignment.
I mean, it's generational, potentially. We have to see how where this goes.
Brett Baird, thanks so much. We'll see you in 40 minutes. Top of the hour. Taking over. Be anchoring throughout the day.
All right, let's bring in Chief National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin. Jen, can you explain, are you hearing anything from your sources right now? Any casualty counts? You know, do we even know still yet with some of the initial reporting? We know that the Supreme Leader's compound has been destroyed where he was staying, but we don't know if he was there at the time.
That's right, Lawrence. We don't have any casualty figures or any confirmation of any of the senior leaders having been killed, even though many of them were targeted by the Israeli airstrikes earlier today. And certainly all eyes will be on whether we see any sign of life from the Supreme Leader, from the defense minister. I mean, they went across the board and targeted the top layer of the Iranian government and the head of the IRGC as well. What I can say is new right now. We're just getting word that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia says they will join the U.S. in the operation against the Islamic Republic of Iran. They said that this comes in the wake of Iran attacking the U.S. base in Saudi Arabia. I just spoke to a senior U.S. official who said the Iranians made a big mistake by firing on Arab coalition partners. Now they are likely to respond. So by Iran firing missiles at UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan, they are now likely to fire back at Iranian targets. So those coalition partners are now going to enter this operation that started off as a U.S.-Israeli operation. That is very, very significant, and we haven't seen that happen in the past. The U.S. military has been focusing on high-value targets, I'm told, the IRGC, significant facilities and capabilities, naval facilities, and I'm told underground facilities likely associated with the nuclear program. We also are reporting that Tomahawk missiles were used in the first volley of strikes. According to one official that I talked to, they said we have suppressed their air defenses. So the U.S. and Israel are having a much easier time targeting now. That first wave was really designed to suppress those air defenses. They're not completely suppressed, but they're virtually suppressed. This was a multi-geographic command and control effort designed to overwhelm their defenses, I was told. And the U.S. military used some new capabilities in these strikes. For the first time ever, the U.S. military used one-way attack drones in combat. I think we're the first to report that. But there were hundreds of targets in what is being described to me as a multi-day operation. The Iranian response has been ineffective, I'm told, but then I'm also getting reports that a large number, possibly 135 Shahed drones, those are Iranian drones, may have targeted the U.S. Navy base, the head of Fifth Fleet in Bahrain, and may have struck targets there. But again, we don't have the battle damage assessment yet. We're waiting for CENTCOM to see what has been struck, and we expect to get a briefing later today. Back to you.
That would be great to get a briefing, get some facts. We're not going to hear from the president today. He already put out his 8-minute address. Thanks so much, Jen. Hey, let's take a look right now at what this conflict looks like, what Iran has, what we have, and where our bases are, and what we're concerned about in terms of being targeted. First off, they got long-range missiles, they have short-range missiles, and we know they're going to be able to, for example, they're able to hit our militias over in Iraq. They're able to hit Kuwait with the short-range missiles to go about 190 miles. And then if you look at the orange, this is going to go to the outer perimeter. This is where they've hit. They've not hit Oman, but we have other allies like Jordan in the area. We have other allies like Saudi Arabia in the area, United Arab Emirates. We've already know they've been targeted, thankfully, including Bahrain. There's been no casualties or substantial damage that's been reported so far. You see a lot of that video online. And then you got the outer ring. You got this is rockets that they have. If they still have it in their arsenal, see how far they can go, about 1,243 miles. And finally, this is why we had missile defense in Europe prior to Barack Obama becoming president. It's because they had missiles that could hit Europe. We were concerned about Iran hitting Europe. But President Obama said, I have a good idea. To show Russia, since it annoys him so much, that we're going to be friendly, we'll take them out for no reason. Turns out Russia's not too friendly. Let's take a look at another map from the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. This takes a look at all of what we have in terms of our bases in the region. As you see, we have a lot of assets. This is the bases that are there forever, that we all know about, that everyone knows are there, are in the dark green. They're in and around the perimeter of Iran. We're concerned about them being targeted. Of course, other bases with a military presence that we've bulked up for this operation because our so-called allies like France, England, and others said, we don't want you based there. And actually some in the region. Those are in the white. So these all could possibly be targeted. The question is, and there's been reports, that this whole operation has caught the Ayatollah and his minions and the IRGC by surprise. Number one, the day in which it started, because we had talks scheduled over the weekend. And number two, the fact that it started in the morning in Tehran, about 2 in the morning here. And one more map we'll take a look at that I think is important for the share. That map would be, do we have that other map to pop up? Perhaps not. Well, in a bit of a standoff. Okay, these are U.S. bases right near Iran. Okay, we'll hold off on that. So with that, let's go over to Lucas Tomlinson live from West Palm Beach about what's going on. That is where the White House essentially is right now, right, Lucas?
That's correct, Brian. President Trump arrived at his Mar-a-Lago estate last night after speaking in Texas. And we heard him tell reporters he was not happy with the negotiations. And if you needed more evidence, look at the strikes last night. These combined U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran. The second major attacks against Iran going back to Midnight Hammer. A lot of significant differences, though. Of course, Midnight Hammer back in June was 7 B-2 bombers dropping those 30,000-pound bunker-busting bombs. So far, we have not seen any evidence the B-2s are overhead, but it could get even more noisy tonight when the sun goes down, Brian. There's been a lot of talk about why this operation took place during the daytime. Last night, people were looking at the moon. It was near full over Tehran. Why daytime? Well, there's no question that the CIA and Mossad has been looking around inside Iran, establishing a pattern of life and seeing Iranian forces gearing up for a nighttime strike. So it's only the next logical thing is for U.S. military planners to see a more relaxed atmosphere during the day. We're in the holy month of Ramadan across Iran, and it is very clear that U.S. military planners saw, and with their Israeli counterparts, saw an opening for this morning strike. As you mentioned, the first bombs dropped at about 9 a.m. local in Tehran, Brian.
Hey, Lucas, I want you to take a look at our map there. You have a monitor. If you don't, you know what our assets are in the region.
Oh, I do.
Yeah, okay, good. You do. So I look at this as assets, and Iran looks at it as targets. So when you look at the two major aircraft carriers and the other ships we have in the area and their carrier groups that surround them, is your greatest area of concern the ships themselves or the different waterways that could be blocked off? Certainly affecting the world economy because so much oil flows through there.
Well, certainly if Iran mines the Strait of Hormuz, where 20% of the world's oil passes through every day, that is a major concern. And it's one of the reasons why officials say you're probably not going to see strikes on Iran's oil industry. The president doesn't want to see the price of fuel go up. Also, if there is regime change, which it looks like that's the goal here from U.S. and Israeli forces, you want to be able to rebuild the country and certainly defend the Iranian people who have been slaughtered over recent days. Now, in terms of those carrier strike groups, if you bring the map back up there, Brian, it's very notable that the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier strike groups in the Eastern Med, remember, she was moved from the Caribbean, where she took part in the Maduro raid just in early January, steamed across the Atlantic, was in the Eastern Med, passed through Gibraltar. A lot of people thought this was for defensive purposes only, and certainly in the strike group there are defensive capabilities aboard those guided missile submarines, her escorts that have ballistic missile defense capabilities. But it also appears that some of the first strikes were launched from the Ford strike group. Tomahawk cruise missiles can also be fired from those destroyer escorts, and we saw some of the open source mobile phone videos earlier seeing Tomahawks, which are subsonic. You can see them passing through. You remember back to the Gulf War. It does appear some of the first strikes were launched from Ford, not the Abraham Lincoln Strike Group. Why? Because where Ford is positioned right now in the Eastern Med, she's actually closer to Tehran than Lincoln and the Lincoln Strike Group.
So the Lincoln Strike Group, I understand, has a lot to do with providing missile defense and defense in general for Israel. Maybe that explains why Israel so far, that we can tell, according to the reporting, has been so successful in knocking down those attacks. The Ford is in place and acting.
Well, when President Trump talked about annihilating Iran's Navy, I think that's where the Lincoln Strike Group comes in. Jets from Lincoln. Remember, there's fifth-generation stealth fighter jets aboard Lincoln, not Ford, actually. And there's a squadron of F-35s aboard Lincoln. It's actually a Marine Corps fighter squadron flying those jets. Those jets can be used to take out Iran's Navy. You also have destroyers in the strike group that can launch Tomahawk cruise missiles against the ports to, as the president said, annihilate Iran's Navy.
All right. We can't wait for more reports. We can see what's going on out there. But until then, we could just speculate, because this has been going on for about 4 or 5 hours, and it's supposed to go on not days, but weeks. Lucas Tomlinson, thanks so much. All right. Let's bring another special guest guy from Oklahoma.
Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin sits on the Armed Services Committee, and he joins us now. Senator, thanks so much for joining the program. What's your reaction to this great military operation, not only from the Israelis, but, of course, the United States leading the way as well?
Yeah, first of all, let me talk to the Iranian people here. I want the Iranian people to know that this is their time. This is your time to get your country back. The American military and all its might is behind you. The president said that he doesn't bluff, that he would be there for you, but we can't fight your fight for you. We will protect you. We'll give you an opportunity to get your country back from the Ayatollah that's been pillaging you since 1979. We truly do care and love for y'all. We want you to come back, and we want to have a relationship for you. But for the generals that know who they are, for the Army that the president was speaking to the Revolutionary Guard, the president made it very clear: lay down your arms, fight for your country, not for the Ayatollah, and we'll give you complete amnesty. We want to see a free Iranian people. We want to see them take their country back and build it to the greatness that they can. Now, to go back to where we're at today, listen, the president had to build his assets up. We had to be ready for every outcome. Chairman Kaine, Secretary Hegseth, through this whole process has been giving the president options A, B, C, and D. The president wanted to make sure that we had every possible outcome mitigated as much as possible. But we also understand that this is a dangerous time for our men and women that so bravely fight for the United States interest home and abroad. The president is well within his authority to do so, to keep our interests safe. But he also spoke very clearly when he said, you know, casualties could take place, which that's what happens in a time of conflict like this. And so our prayers are not just with the servicemen and women, but all the family members that are back here that are worried about their loved ones that they're not hearing from right now. But I knew this time was going to happen. It was just a matter of timing, because the president believes in peace through strength, but he wanted diplomacy to work, and it didn't.
Senator, the president said this morning in the speech, Iran could develop long-range missiles that can threaten our allies in Europe, our troops overseas, and eventually reach the American homeland.
Are you cool?
Which explains why he decided to go through with us. But why didn't we get support from Europe? Why didn't we get support from the UK or from France?
Well, I think we got more support than what
is going on right now?
There's a lot of logistical support. There was a lot of intelligence gathering that was taking place. We had the assets. There's no army. There's no country out there that can do what we can do. But to say they were completely silent in this, you may not see them on the front lines with us, but there was a lot of cooperation.
You cool?
You also notice that China is staying very silent on this, and the reason why is because no one wanted the Ayatollah and his murderous regime to be a nuclear powerhouse. They would completely destabilize that area, and a lot of people are concerned about the shipping lanes too. And so just because we're not seeing them out there doesn't mean they weren't participating, because they had access. A lot of these countries that you're referring to had access that we didn't because of the lack of maybe government-to-government relationships.
Well, Stormer said flat out, can't use our bases, including Diego Garcia, which we specifically asked for. And the president picked up the phone and asked him. And that guy hanging on by a thread, this should finish him, I hope. Senator,
are you cool?
I believe so.
Yeah.
What's going on?
He's absolutely awful.
What's going?
But Senator, when you look at being briefed in the Senate, I know you're not in the Gang of 8, but you're tight with the White House. Do you feel as though
what is going on right now
on the Senate side, and knew about the gravity of this operation?
Well, I know Congress has been briefed as a whole. I mean, the president had to hold this very tight, and so there was a circle of individuals that need to know that are in
This dude is tripping, dude. We are going 40
you have people like
miles an hour.
and Omar that you can't brief Congress as a whole because those individuals like that you just simply can't trust. As we move forward with the operations, now the operations are moving forward, I believe that the Secretary will come to either be Rubio or Secretary Hegseth, or maybe both, will be coming to Congress and doing a classified briefing as a whole for everybody. But you got to understand, this operation was very, obviously you can tell, very well coordinated. The timing was very important. It wasn't actually what I would say intimate, but at the same time, the president was really wanting Witkoff to be able to get a deal. Just Wednesday, some of our Arab nations reached out to me wanting to come have an urgent meeting. And their message was that the Ayatollah wanted to go back to the Bush nuclear deal, which I told them it wasn't going to happen, that we weren't going to allow them to enrich to be able to have the ability to get a nuclear weapon because we can't trust them. And they said, well, what if he continues? And I said, well, it'll probably be suicidal for him. And they got the message very clear at that point, which I felt like it was interesting that they reached out to me to have that conversation. They wanted to go around Witkoff and directly have a message or a meeting with the president, which I said I wasn't going to help set up. So they knew something was happening. They knew the Ayatollah was looking for more time to continue to build their nuclear weapons. But the Arab nations that I spoke to, I felt like was trying to do his bidding, but this is ultimately the outcome. But we absolutely wasn't looking for regime change, but because we can't trust the Ayatollah, the Ayatollah's life is hanging on by a to the overthrow of the Shah. You were a Western country that we had great relationships with. You had more women in the workforce, professional workforce, than even the American people did. You had more women elected to government offices than the American people did. We want to see the greatness of Iran again, and we're there to help you, but you've got to fight for your country.
So, Senator, what is your message to the folks here at home, specifically some that may be a part of the MAGA movement? Although the president made the case very clearly, he made it first through the State of the Union. He told the people of Iran, and then he just released this statement this morning laying out why he took his action. But some of them still disagree with him. You're one of those people that got elected during that wave of MAGA candidates. What would you tell them?
Well, we're not looking for war, but President Trump believes, like Reagan, peace through strength. And if people think that what happens in Iran doesn't affect us, they're just wrong. We have a world economy. Our economy is tied into the world, and our dollar is the currency around the world, and we're also the world power. What happens in the Middle East does affect us. It affects the oil prices you guys were just talking about. 20% of it just through one canal is shipped daily through that area. We are making sure that they can't mine the canal. We're making sure that strait stays open. We're making sure that they're not able to disrupt shipping lanes. But they could do that. If Iran became a nuclear weapon, they could destabilize that entire region, which could destabilize the economy and could keep it in flux for years. Just think about it. They can disrupt 20% of the world oil for one day. The oil prices start climbing immediately, and you can't build and nor can you ship a product without factoring in energy costs. So it would completely keep it volatile. They could shut down 2 straits and very easily take over one shipping canal. With them being a nuclear powerhouse. And so we do have a lot of assets in that region. I think, Brian, a while ago, you had a map up to showing all of our bases through there. There's a reason why through in that region we have so many bases, because how vitally important those shipping lanes are to the United States. If it wasn't, we wouldn't be so concentrated in that one area. And so I get those that are with the MAGA movement that are upset. Some of those feel like we should maybe be more in an isolationist country. But there is going to be, and there always has been, a world power. And if we're not out there, then China is going to fill that vacuum, just as like they tried to do during the Biden administration. Trump came in and has reset that, and the world is paying attention and are appreciative of us pushing back against these terrorist organizations. I mean, think about this. How long have we been dealing with Iran? Since 1979. We've had multiple presidents that's ignored it. President Trump is saying we're finishing it. We're not going to continue to allow them to be a thorn on our side and constantly attacking us and us turning a blind eye to them.
And playing this out, the reason why this is necessary and the ripple effects that could happen if you ever want to get this Gaza rebuilt, it's not going to happen as long as Hamas is there. And Hamas is not going to go away until Iran stops funding them. Iran will stop funding them when we're done with this campaign. If you ever want to pivot to China, we can't do that. We need more assets in this region because of Iran. And if we can have an Iran that is just not an enemy, they don't have to be a democracy. Whatever they need to do, they can do. But as long as they're not attacking us and making us the enemy and Israel, that'll settle things down, and we can pivot to maybe where certain people on the right and on the left feel we should be more involved in the Pacific. We can't do it right now.
Right. Brian, and I know you know this, but I want your audience to know that Iran was the #1 sponsor of terror around the world. And their whole goal was to disrupt the Western way of life, which is the heart of that is the United States. It wasn't a matter of if they wanted to put a nuclear weapon on us. It was just a matter of when they could do it. And they're not going to go away. You think the Houthis, you think Hamas, you could go down the list of terrorist organizations that they are directly tied to in funding. The reason why they have been inactive as of late is because after the 12-day war, Iran didn't have the resources to be able to send the money to them, but they were trying to build that back up. And you can see how we can stabilize a lot of these terror attacks by just taking out the head of the snake. And the head of the snake is the Ayatollah and his murderous regime, not the Iranian people. As I said, the Iranian people, they need to choose their next leadership. It's not for us to choose. It's not for us to find the next leader. We just want to make sure that whoever it is, we have a relationship with. It's your country. We're giving you the opportunity for the Iranian people to take back your beautiful and prosperous country that it once was. Yeah, and hopefully they will stop yelling or chanting death to America. They've been doing that for 47 years. Thank you, Senator, for coming on. Thanks, Senator. Right. And our next guest is an Iranian activist who has been advocating heavily for the people of Iran. And her name is Moshe Madera, and she joins us now. Moshe, thank you so much. Tell us your reaction.
Well, of course, thanks for having me. And my immediate reaction is, of course, I'm concerned for my family and friends and my own countrymen, but I'm also at the same time really excited, not excited. I think we're relieved to see that there's going to be some protection and action here. I think the Iranian people have been suffering at the hands of this regime over the past 47 years, but this massacre this last January, I think really was the red line for the Iranian people, both in Iran and in the diaspora. So in this moment, if you're seeing videos coming out of Tehran, you see that people clearly are scared. People are very worried. I think there's deep concern for their safety. But at the same time, people are relieved to see that there is someone on the outside coming in to help them. I think they've been desperately begging and asking the world for help now over the past decade, but more especially over the past 4 years since Mahsa Amini. So today, as you can see in the streets, there's video after video of people cheering, crying. People have been prepared. People have been packing supplies, water, food. They've bought a Starlink. They're sharing it with their neighbor. People have moved out of locations where there might be hits. And so I think people are really wondering what's going on. It's a very scary time. It's a very intense time. I think that there's mixed emotions. It's hard not to say that there's mixed emotions, but I think people do understand that this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, once in a 100 years, 1,000-year opportunity where we have an opportunity to change the face of this region and move out of this terrorist regime into something of the future.
Moshe, is it fair to say that the majority of the folks in Iran wanted the U.S. to help them right here?
I think the majority of people in Iran wanted the regime to leave. I think the majority of people in Iran wanted this regime to never massacre 40,000 of their own, imprison their own. They were tired of the exploitation of their resources, of their name into these proxy wars. They were mortified and sickened by what they saw in Gaza and Lebanon and what they've seen in Yemen. And I think this doesn't represent the Iranian people. So this has just been the line. When they see that they are suffering the food cost, their energy cost, that they have no access to resources, they're so isolated. And if you know Iranian people, you know that we belong a part of the modern world. You know that we are active in the diaspora and we are a good representation of who we are as a country. And so for Iranians, this is desperate. This is the only chance that we have to break free of this regime. This is the only opportunity we see to step forward into a new future and be a part of what we see in the Gulf states, what we see in the rest of the Arab world, where there is a moving forward in partnership with the West into a modern world. And so this is, unfortunately, it's terrible. I wish that they had just left, but this is our only shot. So yes, I think the worst thing could have happened here is absolutely nothing. Wow. Something had to happen. And this is unfortunately what it is. And from the speech that I heard last night from President Trump, frankly, if I'm being candid with you, I'm in my late 40s. I've been waiting my entire life to hear a sitting president speak that way about that country, because it doesn't just pose a threat to America, it poses a threat to an entire region.
Or you can die. Do you expect the IRGC to flip? And do you expect the people to rise up again?
Listen, I think this is the first time in history about 1 million people worldwide came out in support of the Crown Prince. That was historic for us. It was nonviolent, it was united, it was peaceful. I think other nations have gathered around us. So I think if Iranian people have the opportunity to overthrow this government in the end themselves, that would be the finish the job, but they do not have the resources. We're only day one. We have to see what's in store. We know that both the U.S. and Israel have been planning and thinking about this for a long time, and we know there's a lot of intelligence. And listen, if they can find ways to support the Iranian people to finish the job, the Iranian people are going to finish this job, and they are not going to forget what happened this year. 47,000 dead. We will never forget that. Not in the diaspora, not inside the country. This is the line.
Moshe, I mean, that really hit me when you said you're in your late 40s. I mean, this happened, Ayatollah was put in command or in charge 47 years ago. So what was life like? What did 40s? I mean, this happened, Ayatollah was put in command or in charge 47 years ago. So what was life like? What do your relatives say that are older than you? What was life like for women before this?
I mean, my mother's an incredibly educated woman under the Shah. with the support of her father and family, and every other woman in my family is. And they had a transformative life. They had a fantastic life under him. And not only did Iranians have a great life under the Shah, but frankly, if you look at the neighboring countries, the other women also had amazing opportunities within their countries because everyone was influenced. I think people have to always remember one thing. Iran is always going to be an empire. It can either be a positive empire or a negative empire. In the 70s, it was an incredibly inspiring, positive empire. We need to just accept the fact that this is an influential country. It is by resource and by culture. And we need to set forward an opportunity for the Iranian people to do what they do best, which is inspire the world. And so this is inspiring, positive empire. We need to just accept the fact that this is an influential country. It is by resource and by culture, and we need to set forward an opportunity for the Iranian people to do what they do best, which is inspire the world. And so this is what we're going to do. We're going to partner with America. We're going to partner with Israel and all of the allies that want to partner with us, and we are going to break free of this regime. But yes, I think that every woman I know thrived under the Shah. Absolutely.
How important would it be to get some of these prisons open where most of the political leaders are? Is that possible?
That's right.
I mean, can we work on that?
Good question.
I think that this is the best question to ask of the Israeli government and military. This is what they're amazing at. This is what they've been studying to do. And I think that you're right. This is where all of the future leaders of our democracy are inside Evin prison. And I think we are very anxious to see those doors open so we can hold a referendum and an election. We are extremely proud of the Crown Prince and extremely, extremely hoping for his return to Iran so he can oversee a transition. He has an incredible Iranian Prosperity Project, which is a plan. It has the support of the Iranian people in and out of the diaspora. And if you were to ask every single Iranian in the diaspora, do you commit 10% of your time, of your money, to reappropriate back into your country? I promise you the answer is yes. We are ready. Iranian people are ready. We are ready to lead. We are ready to get away from this regime and into the future. We want to be a part of the free world.
You know, Moshe, I'm struck by your words because I think you're a realist in many sense. You know, I have so many friends that, you know, parents are from Iran, and they're not as supportive of the Shah. They talk about some dark times with the Shah as well. But your point is that you really don't have a choice. So do you think if there was to be a leader after this is all said and done, it's going to be the Crown Prince, the exiled Crown Prince?
I think the Crown Prince will do what he says, which is hold a referendum for an election. I think he's committed to the Iranian people, and we believe him. He has the support of the left, the right, the Kurdish, various different sects of political positions. I think he has been transformative in that. I think he has worked very hard. We're extremely proud of him. And I think for people who say that the life under Shah was not perfect, I think that's a fair, you know, everyone has an experience, but the reality is nobody moved forward that country from an energy, from a resource, from an education, from a tourism, from an infrastructure. I mean, the Iranian government today is using the same exact infrastructure of Mohammad Reza Shah. So he was fantastic. He was great. He was a countryman. He loved his people. And I think that it was an incredibly complicated time to be a leader. And I think we should never forget he was also very sick at that time. But he never, ever, ever murdered 47,000 people of his own people in the streets for protesting for freedom. In fact, when his people protested, he chose to leave. So this is what we're really dealing with is who I believe in the most isn't a prince or a king. I believe in the people of Iran. I believe in the people of Iran. We want this. We're not naive. We know what we've asked for. And I know everyone thinks we're crazy and insane, but we also believe in America. We also believe in our allies. We understand what democracy is. We've benefited. Look at the Iranian diaspora and how incredibly well we've thrived in America. And you don't see us marching in the streets here, death to America. You don't see us participating in anti-American rhetoric because we understand how how beautiful democracy is. And we want to see how do we bring some version of that into Iran?
Great.
We want to be just like a kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Like, look at the amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, there's an amazing opportunity in the Middle East, not just with Iran. You look at the beautiful things of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. You look at the Gulf states. There is a modernization going on here, and we want to be a part of it. And we want to be partners with the world. We have to go through this. This is terrible. Encouraging everyone to stay inside. We have to do everything we can as an American people to protect the Iranian people and American troops.
Well,
but this regime has got to go.
Right. Hopefully they're being decapitated as we speak, and that change is underway.
Amen. Amen.
Well, this
God
has to
bless
be an
America.
emotional day for you. I know you've based your whole life around this and formed your organization on this. So God bless you.
Well,
it's very
powerful. Many of us have.
Yes.
Many of us have, and this is just the beginning.
Thank you, Moosh.
Keep believing, keep
Thank you
fighting.
so much.
Thanks, Moshe.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wow.
Well, let's bring in Fox News contributor, former CIA station chief Dan Hoffman. Dan, from what you know of the campaign, what do you think of the plan as you see it? We understand take out the leaders, then take out the infrastructure. How do you feel this is unfolding at this hour?
Yeah, I think, look, what we're seeing here is coercive regime change from afar. We are, with Israel, our ally, targeting Iran's military, their intelligence services, and the leadership in Iran to open the aperture for the opposition in Iran, to the extent that it has the potential to do so, to take power. And that's going to require some of those military officers and the security services and intelligence officials to switch sides, to flip. And the Trump administration, I think, is hoping that these kinetic strikes will induce that to happen.
What do you think?
Well, look, it's hard to be optimistic about the Middle East. I think the Trump administration looked at this situation. We deployed a massive amount of military assets to the region designed to pressure Iran and gain leverage to negotiate. And Iran refused to do that. And the Trump administration wasn't about to eliminate the sanctions or give Iran the sanctions relief and allow the regime further to entrench itself in return for a bad deal. And so here we are. Now, I can tell you, based on my experience, that the CIA, the intelligence community, right now has three responsibilities. One is the battle damage assessment and targeting of key sites inside Iran. The second is to collect intelligence on the response from Iran's leadership and whether we're seeing a splintering there as a result of these attacks. And then third is the outreach to Iranian officials who might be on the fence. In seconds, in real time, Lawrence, I can tell you from my own experience having served in war zones, the CIA is producing intelligence reports that are landing on the president's desk right now with updates that are sometimes just a few minutes old. And so the situation is extraordinarily dynamic.
Dan, thank you so much.
Dan, it's good to see you.
Let's bring in our big weekend show co-host and retired U.S. Marine bomb tech, Joey Jones. Joey, I know this is personal for you. You lost both of your legs, and Donald Trump yesterday or this morning said going to annihilate their Navy. Their proxies can no longer use IEDs, roadside bombs, to annihilate people. Never have a nuclear weapon. No one should challenge the strength of the U.S. military.
Yeah, that's both the good and the bad of this entire situation. When we look at Iran, one thing we didn't have in Afghanistan when we were fighting the Taliban and really Al-Qaeda, which is an international terrorist organization, is a centralized government with power. So I bring that up to say that doesn't mean we're scot-free on this. You know, I think the next 72 hours, next 2 to 3 weeks could be very much a U.S.-led, not a lot of retaliation or not a lot of pain inflicted on us. But when you stretch that out to 2 or 3 years from now, what happens with the Islamic radicals within Iran? I think that this is really impressive. And let me explain why. We have sea superiority. We have air superiority. That's not even a question. We don't have ground superiority because we don't have ground troops there. What's taking the place of that is what Dan was just talking about, intelligence. I read a report today from someone that's been pumping out a lot on X. It's not confirmed, so I'm not going to give his name or even the account, but his summation is that the U.S. decided its strike when they saw that the leaders of Iran were gathering in one place. And that was really all they were waiting on. That was the waiting game that was happening. If that's true, the level of intelligence it takes to know that and to say, hey, you know what, we're gonna disregard our policy, which is to strike at night and use the cover of darkness for a defensive measure, and say, you know what, we're going to strike as soon as we have that opportunity. We saw something similar happen with Israel not that long ago. But the level of intelligence in a country that is supposedly so buttoned up for communication, that is so pushed out from everything that the world can see in it, man, that really shows you the planning of the years. I mean, think about everything that's happened. President Trump's first move in both presidencies was to go to the Middle East. Abraham Accords, bringing Saudi Arabia closer. I mean, you know, most of us still believe Saudi Arabia was a big role in 9/11. Here we are 25, 26 years later, and what are you going to do about it? Are you going to bomb Saudi Arabia, or are you going to make them an asset that makes sure something like that doesn't happen again? And so every move this administration has done, even in the first administration, to get to a place to where if and when this happens, we are the most buttoned up, the most secure from it. I mean, the first thing Iran has done is bomb just about every country that might have thought about staying out of it or being on their side.
Stupid.
I mean, and what that tells me is they don't feel like there is a better move. The only other two players that we can really consider to be a problem are Russia and China. Russia's bogged down in a war in Ukraine. China's a problem. I think this plays in China's favor a little bit. Every bomb we drop or send towards Iran is one we can't use if something happens in Taiwan.
Guess who's not getting discounted oil?
Well, that's fair. That's what I'm saying. Like, when you look at the way the chess pieces were put into place prior to this decision, and then to make it when you think they're all in one place, or hopefully they were, we don't know that. I'm not reporting that. I'm saying that I believe that was the idea, the strategy. That shows you just how methodical and how strategic and surgical this administration acts compared to really the last 3 or 4 presidents before him.
Joey Jones, thank you so much for joining us this morning. You're going to be doing your show this weekend as well.
When do you start? Normal hours?
Yeah, so today I think we're going to see a lot of friendly faces from Monday through Friday, and then tomorrow maybe we'll pick up our show.
I'm sure you'll be on all the shows, though, talking
we'll
about this. How'd you feel this morning when it happened?
I felt anxiety and relief, like every other American. I want to see Iran fall. I don't want to see someone there that can pump out the types of IEDs they've done. I also don't want to see Americans get hurt. And there are hundreds of thousands in Israel alone, not counting our military.
Right. If we ever want to pivot to China, we got to handle Iran.
Yeah.
They're always going to be a problem.
They're telling us Sean's going to be on today, Brett Baer, Laura Ingraham, John Roberts.
Yeah, and then Brett Baer is
right after us.
Brett Baer's right after us. Okay, well, y'all, thank you so much. We've just done 4 hours on this. Woke up to the news. Yeah. Thanks for letting us spend our Saturday mornings with you. Yeah. Keep watching.
Yeah, historic times.
This is a Fox News alert. Right now, the U.S. and Israel are striking Iran, and Iran in recent hours has fired missiles in response to a number of different targets in the region. This follows a joint surprise attack this morning called Operation Epic Fury. And unlike the last operation inside Iran back in June, U.S. officials tell the world this could last days or weeks, not hours. Welcome to this special edition of Fox News Live. I'm Brett Baer on this historic day. This ongoing and widespread assault follows Iran's refusal to end its nuclear program and the diplomatic talks about that fell apart in recent days. U.S. strikes are said to be focused on nuclear and missile sites, also high-value targets, and Israel is targeting Iran's leadership, we're told. President Trump is vowing to wipe out Iran's decades-long military threat.
A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world. We are going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground. It will be totally, again, obliterated. We're going to annihilate their Navy. We're going to ensure that the region's terrorist proxies can no longer destabilize the region or the world and attack our forces and no longer use their IEDs or roadside bombs, as they are sometimes called, to so gravely wound and kill thousands and thousands of people, including many Americans.
We're following all the developments. Minutes ago, the U.S. Embassy in Beirut issued a security alert urging U.S. citizens not to travel to Lebanon, and any Americans who are there should depart Lebanon immediately while commercial options remain available. Israel, in the past few hours, has taken out Hezbollah missile sites as the threat from that Iranian proxy the terrorist proxy Hezbollah is being watched closely. Kayleigh McEnany, host of Saturday in America and former White House press secretary, is with me. Good morning, Kayleigh. It is quite something, and it is historic.
It's historic, and I go back, Brett, to September 15, 2020, when I was sitting in the South Lawn and I watched then President Trump in his first term announce normalization of relations with Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates. And it was historic, first time it had happened in a quarter of a century. And then following that, you had Sudan and Morocco. And I take us back to that moment because but for that moment, I don't believe today happens. This happened because of an increasing isolated position of Iran. And I think my data point for that but for moment is the fact that you had Saudi Arabia, who called Iran and said, we will not allow the United States to use our airspace in these attacks. And then this morning, the statement that Saudi Arabia put out, no, it does not mention the United States, but it vows support for some of its neighbors that were attacked. And you see Iran in that increasing isolation, and you trace it back to the diplomacy that occurred in September of 2020.
And you wonder, Kayleigh, you know, Iran fired missiles at Saudi Arabia, at Bahrain, at UAE, at Kuwait, at Jordan this morning. And by doing that, maybe brought some of those countries that had put out statements denouncing the U.S.-Israel action now on the side or changing the dynamic. You saw the first administration, President Trump, go after Qasem Soleimani and pull that trigger. And this is, it looks like a bigger, broader trigger that he's pulling today.
Indeed. And you would think that Soleimani would have been an indicator to Iran that the president's not afraid to take action with hard power when necessary. Being reported by Barak Ravid between the Saudis and the Emiratis, and there were tensions between these two powers. So you're seeing a coming together, and you wonder what Iran's calculation was in attacking these powers right beside them. I think they will look back and see this as a severe miscalculation, and perhaps the diplomacy endeavored by Jared Kushner was the way to go just a few days ago.
Yeah, and obviously we have U.S. bases in all of the places around the region. Kayleigh, thank you. Stand by. We have team coverage today. Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yingst in Tel Aviv. Former Navy SEAL Jack Carr is with us, and Chief National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin. Let's start with Jennifer, who has been on top of this since the beginning. Jennifer, good morning. What do we know?
Good morning, Brett. Well, we're 8 hours into this operation, and so far Hezbollah has not fired at Israel. That is significant. They are clearly waiting to see what happens with Iran, their proxy overlord, and they are not firing at Israel right now. Israel also has taken steps to fire preemptively at their stockpiles of missiles, but that is notable. The strikes began shortly after 1 a.m. Eastern. This is a rare joint U.S.-Israeli operation synchronized and planned over a matter of months, I'm told. A senior U.S. military official tells me this operation will last not hours, but days. Among the initial targets, the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's compound, which can be seen in satellite photos as mere rubble. It's not clear whether the Ayatollah was there. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi spoke to NBC moments ago and was asked to confirm whether the Ayatollah and the Iranian president are still alive.
As far as I know, yes, they are alive, and the head of judiciary as well, the head of the Speaker of Parliament as well, all high-ranking officials are alive, and the Secretary of the National Security Council. So everybody is now in its position, and we are handling this situation, and everything is fine.
There were hundreds of targets in this first daytime wave. The U.S. military has been focusing on high-value targets, IRGC, significant facilities and capabilities, naval facilities, and underground facilities likely associated with the nuclear program. Tomahawk missiles, we learned, were used in the first volley of strikes, likely fired from the U.S. destroyers traveling in the North Arabian Sea with the USS Abraham Lincoln, or from the USS Georgia, the Ohio-class submarine, which has 154 Tomahawk missiles on board. We have effectively suppressed their air defenses, one U.S. official told me. This was a multi-geographic command and control operation designed to overwhelm Iran's defenses. Fox News has learned the U.S. military used some new capabilities in these strikes. For the first time, it used one-way attack drones in combat. Other targets in the initial wave, the Defense Ministry, the Parliament, the National Supreme Council, the Ministry of Intelligence, Iran's Atomic Energy Agency, as well as naval bases down near Bandar Abbas and Kark Island in the south, with targets in Bushehr as well. In the eastern part of Iran, U.S. missiles struck the IRGC Aerospace Forces, part of Iran's ballistic missile and satellite program. Among the top Iranian leaders targeted by the Israeli military, Iran's president, the defense minister, and the head of the judiciary, who has issued death sentences to thousands of Iranian protesters, and former Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, who once famously vowed to wipe Israel from the map. His home was struck. It's not clear whether there are casualties. Already, the Iranian response has targeted all U.S. bases in the Gulf, except U.S. bases in Oman, since the Omani foreign minister had tried to mediate the nuclear talks in Geneva, even flying to Washington, D.C. to meet Vice President J.D. Vance at the White House yesterday to try to avert what is quickly turning into a regional war. One last thing, Brett, we have learned
2 cubes and a malt
the US
just subscribed.
Base, the head of the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet in Bahrain, has been really taking a pounding. It is probably the most vulnerable drone used to target some of the communications facilities there. Brett?
And they evacuated some members there and family members from Bahrain. Jen, you know, the foreign minister, and I've talked to him, Foreign Minister Arachi, he has this tinge of Baghdad Bob back in Saddam
Detected
Hussein.
just
the PR
cheered
guy who said
100
there's nothing
bits.
wrong here, and the tanks are rolling behind him. As he was talking, he says everything is fine. Everything is definitely not fine. The question is, how will we know, do you think, whether those leadership targets have been taken out? I mean, the Israelis and some reporting that they believe they got the Ayatollah, but we will have to wait and
Crazy
see.
Times just cheered
confirmation of all of
100 bits.
I suspect that they did get some of the top leaders, especially the head of the IRGC. They have excellent intelligence. And
the hype train has pulled into the station. All aboard. Choo choo.
But they may not have gotten everyone. It's very difficult. Sometimes people move. And certainly the supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, would have known that his compound was a target. So it is possible
Infectious
he wasn't there.
37
What I
just
think we're
cheered
hearing now is
150
some,
bits.
messaging where
Party
the Israelis
parrot,
are saying
party
they've gotten
parrot,
someone,
party
and now
parrot.
the Iranians want to prove that that person is still alive, and so they'll put up some sort of proof of life, so as not to, so that it look as though they're still in control. But again, this is just the beginning. This is just the first day.
Kramnik
We haven't even
Cheats
gone
just
through the
subscribed.
First night, and those strikes are likely to be even more powerful. So this is the beginning. It is interesting that Saudi Arabia has announced that it is going to join the attacks on Iran after Iran fired at a U.S. base in Saudi Arabia, Brett.
Very interesting. Yeah, I mentioned that at the top of the show. Jen, thanks. We'll head back for breaking news. Thank you. In retaliation to the initial Operation Epic Fury strike, Iran has launched, as we mentioned, missiles against parts of Israel, U.S. interests in the Middle East. The attacks coming after the initial strikes against Iran's facilities and those leadership targets, leading up to the daytime strikes coordinated between U.S. and Israeli forces. Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yingst is live from Tel Aviv. Trey, you've seen and heard some incoming over the past few hours. What's new?
Yeah, Brett, good morning. Several times over the past hour, air raid sirens have sounded across Israel's second largest city of Tel Aviv. And even as we speak right now, Brett, there are alerts coming in central Israel, close to the Dead Sea, outside of Jerusalem, of a wave of Iranian drones that are headed toward this country. And it gives you a sense that the Iranians are trying to get whatever they can past Israeli air defense systems. So far, they have been unsuccessful, firing dozens of ballistic missiles at this country, not just at Tel Aviv, but at Haifa in the north of Israel, at Jerusalem, and even in the south, in the desert, at a city called Beersheba. As we look at what's going to take place in the hours ahead, Israeli air defense systems remain on high alert. Millions of people here are in bomb shelters at the moment.
Detected
and Israel's
just cheered
military says
100
they are calling up
bits.
70,000 reservists, mostly to man air defense systems. From the Iron Dome to David Sling to the Arrow 2 and 3 system, they are working to shoot down as much of this incoming fire as possible. And where the missiles slip through, they hope that the Patriot or THAAD U.S.-supplied systems are able to pick
Infectious
up that missile
37
fire.
just
When we
cheered
look at the state
100
of the
bits.
military, we know,
Party
according
parrot.
to Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, there was close coordination with President Trump and American counterparts ahead of these strikes that were launched early this morning. But in the days ahead, as Jennifer noted, this is expected to intensify with more strikes taking place, U.S. planes taking off from Israel, and again, more incoming ballistic missile fire. But the updates continue to come in each and every minute, Brett. We are now getting some new information from paramedics in central Israel who say during the last Iranian ballistic missile barrage, a 17-year-old boy was wounded and taken to a local hospital. So far, there have been no fatalities reported in Israel. These, again, are the air raid
Infectious
sirens that are
37
sounding
just
across this
cheered
country
100
amid
bits.
new incoming missile fire. And again, Brett, just as we are speaking here, it gives you a sense of how dynamic this situation is. My cameraman's going to take our camera off of the tripod, and he's going to put it on his shoulder so that we can move out here.
The hype train has pulled into the station. All aboard.
These are the alerts
Choo choo.
that are considered the last line of defense for civilians so that they know what's going to happen. A siren just like the one that you're hearing now, Brett, was sounding early this morning as an alert to the Israeli people that this war was underway. Everyone across the country headed into bomb shelters, whether underground
Crazy
or in
Times
what they
just
call a
cheered
mamad here, a
100
safe room
bits.
inside of the buildings across Israel. Shortly after that, text alerts went out on phones, and then the war was underway. Homefront Command is the branch of the Army that is responsible for delivering instructions to the Israeli public. The instructions at the moment are to shelter in place. We have seen the images of bomb shelters. And actually, come here, Yaniv, I want to just show you what the highway looks like here, Brett. If you see these cars over here on the highway, people are currently pulled off on the side of the road. There are no cars. Is the main artery that runs through Israel's second largest city, and it is paralyzed at the moment amid this incoming ballistic missile fire. This is what civilians are told to do if they are on the road, to pull over, get out of their cars, get as much hard cover as possible. It has been back and forth all day, Brett. The missile fire is intensifying, and the Israelis, like the Americans, are prepared for war. Brett?
You know, Trey, you are very used to this, as are the Israelis. They've been through this before. I'm just wondering, as far as the amount that you're seeing, I saw you hold up your phone and get the warnings, and they seem to be very significant as far as in number. But what you've seen from the last time back in June to what you're seeing right now?
It's a great question. The Iranians do not have the same capabilities they had during the 12-day war last June. Oftentimes, they were overwhelming Israel's missile defense systems, and you saw these ballistic missiles here in Tel Aviv, and I'm just listening to these interceptions on the outskirts of the city as we're talking now, Brett. Those missiles are being intercepted even at this moment. But last year, when they were able to overwhelm missile defense systems, these missiles were slamming into buildings in Tel Aviv. More than 24 people were killed. Rescue workers at the scene digging through the debris and the rubble. We've not yet seen those scenes this time. That's in part because of the coordination at the highest level. President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ensuring that there were months of preparation ahead of this operation to not only prepare offensively, but also defensively.
Kramnik cheats
the second
just
thing has
cheered
to do
50
with the
bits.
immediate strikes early this morning. We reviewed some video from the Israeli Defense Forces showing how they went after Iran's ballistic missile launching positions in the western part of their country. These are the missile launchers that they use to target central Israel. They largely are protected. Sometimes they bring them out from underground. The Israelis were using drones along the coast just next to the Persian Gulf to monitor this situation in the days ahead. And they want to, every single time they see a missile or a launcher be taken above ground, hit it right away. And that's exactly what they have done. And at this current hour, it has suppressed a lot of the incoming fire. We know, according to Israeli officials, they say dozens of Iranian missiles have rained down on cities today. But again, that is far less than what we saw last summer when the war erupted. Brett?
Yeah, and Trey, I just want to ask you one more thing, and that is about this this morning strike, daylight. I've been told by senior officials that they had a number of triggers, a number of things that could happen that was a trigger to when it would happen. We saw in June the amazing intelligence that the Israelis had about leadership gathers inside Iran in which they found out where they were gathering and they took out their sites and took out those leaders. Is your sense from the Israelis that might pull the trigger going after leadership gathering?
that information, and we do expect to get it in the hours ahead. The Americans were responsible for going after, we understand, a lot of the government buildings and the military structure to ensure that each country had its target list. And even as we're speaking now, Brett, I'm getting new information, and I'm just going to read it to you here. This is coming from a military official in Israel who says earlier today the IDF and the U.S. Army launched a broad wave of strikes against hundreds of targets in Iranian territory. The attack intelligence effort, and this was an effort by the intelligence doctorate here to identify an operational opportunity at the moment when senior regime officials would convene. And just by chance, we're getting this comment. It goes exactly to the core of your question, Brett. There were certainly operational windows. We saw a broader strike window open up when the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier arrived in the eastern Mediterranean. Remember, it stopped in Greece. It had some technical issues to take care of for about 24 hours and then continued on to the coast of Israel off the northern city of Haifa. When that aircraft carrier was in place, you had the USS Gerald R. Ford in the Mediterranean, the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group in the Arabian Sea, a variety of U.S. destroyers. You had nearly a dozen F-22s that arrived here in Israel. You had U.S. fighter jets in Jordan, and a number of American assets that were deploying from the Gulf, including drones to monitor the situation. So we knew when the operational window was broadly opening, but it gets down to the core of when the Israelis wanted to launch these strikes. As you mentioned, during the war in June, they were able to time the strikes so precisely that they took out nearly the entire command center of the IRGC, the entire leadership core of Iran's military. And it appears, according to this statement that we just received from a single Israeli military official, that they were able to do this again. And there's just one more quote I want to read you here before giving it back to you, Brett. 3 sites where gatherings of Iranian terror regime officials were taking place were struck simultaneously, and several senior figures essential to the management of the campaign and the regime's governance were eliminated. Again, this is coming directly from a very high-ranking Israeli military source at this moment. Brett?
That's real-time reporting coming in, and it seems like the Israelis feel like they got at least some members of that senior Iranian leadership. We'll find out exactly who. Trey Yingst live in Tel Aviv. Trey, thanks. Come back for any breaking news. Bring back in host of Saturday in America, former White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany.
مسيرة يا شباب مسيرة مسيرة اضرب 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 عجل مسيرة يا شباب مسيرة مسيرة اضرب 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 اضرب
يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا
साइड पे हो जाओ साइड पे भागो Oh my God.
Guys, look at other. Look at other.
साइड पे हो जाओ, साइड पे भागो। Oh my God.
What's going on here? Are you cool? What's going on? What's going?
with Iran. Now, bowing to those concessions for the Iranian regime really amounted to complete surrender, which they were never going to do. And for me, it feels like I've seen some of this before, and I think a lot of us who are in Iraq and Afghanistan serving there have some of those concerns about regime change. But my hope is, and hope, of course, is never a course of action, but that we have learned from the lessons of Iraq and Afghanistan and are applying them to this current problem set, meaning ahead of time, hopefully we have identified a primary, a secondary, and a tertiary leader in Iran to step up into a power vacuum if the regime is in fact taken off the board.
The critics and the folks who are just kind of in the middle saying what comes next. Do you believe that to be able to pull this trigger, to be able to do this, that there has to be another step? There has to be some level of planning that involves the Israelis' intelligence, our intelligence, what's happening on the ground, and how the vacuum will be filled if and when the regime in fact does fall.
I would think so, and I would think that with the people that we have in place throughout the senior level military leadership in the administration, that they weren't going to do something like this unless Iran really was close to developing this nuclear weapon. Now, we've heard that for the past essentially 2 decades, then there's been an off-ramp. We've heard it again, another off-ramp. So I would think in this case, there was an opportunity to make sure going forward that Iran does not develop this capability that directly could impact America and, of course, allies around the world. So I think that must have been on the table. And then in this case, of course, we have there's other things at play here. Strait of Hormuz, so the special operations side of the house, I would think
Impetus_gaming just followed.
That area, hitting these nuclear facilities, maybe from the inside this time. Perhaps we learned from the strikes last summer that air power alone was not enough to take these things off the board and to completely destroy them. Maybe it was only enough to deter, to dismantle them for a little while. So putting boots on the ground, destroying them from the inside, that's a possibility. And of course, hitting high-value individuals, those high-value targets, and those command and control centers, those are probably what's on the board here. But when we take it a step further and we think about an Iranian response, of course, we're seeing some of those ballistic missiles now headed towards Israel and other allies in the region. But we can take this back to 1983 and think of the proxy force from Iran that hit our peacekeepers who were Marines in Beirut, that headquarters and barracks building in October of 1983, and what the administration's response to that taught the enemy. And that taught them, there was a lot of tough talk out of Washington at the time, and then in early 1984, we left the region. But what it taught the enemy was that terrorism works. So, so that is certainly in play going forward here. And then that back and forth, if we do not completely take this regime out, if new leadership doesn't come in that is in the U.S. camp, not the Russia and China camp, but if we have new a leadership vacuum that that is filled by people who use these proxy forces. Remember, Hezbollah now is a worldwide type of an organization, and we can go back not to Iran but to Libya and remember the strikes against Libya in response to killing 2 U.S. servicemen in Berlin in 1986. There were U.S. strikes targeting Gaddafi. Didn't take him out, and what did that lead to? It led to Pan Am 103 in December of 1988.
Yeah, and you know, the president stitched together a lot of that history in the 8-minute address that he gave announcing these strikes this morning. Jack Carr, thank you very much. Let's turn and bring in former Israeli ambassador to the U.S., Michael Oren. Mr. Ambassador, thank you for being here. Your thoughts on this day?
Well, first of all, thank you, Brett. Great to be with you even during this day. We keep on running into my safe room about 20 times as those sirens go off. And great reporting by Trey and by Jennifer Griffin is awesome, as always. It's an extraordinary moment. It's an extraordinary historic moment. The president's speech, which our time was about 8 o'clock this morning, set out the case for Iran, not just for Israel, not just for the United States, but for the world. This is a regime that has been responsible for the deaths of tens of thousands of people, not just in the Middle East, but around the world. And as Jack Carr just mentioned, Hezbollah, which is the proxy of Iran, has branches throughout South America, has conducted terrorist attacks in South America. It is deeply involved in the drug trade worldwide and has killed hundreds and hundreds of Americans as well. So this is a regime that cannot continue, certainly to have the ability to make nuclear weapons, to have ballistic missiles that pose a strategic threat to Israel and a potentially strategic threat to Europe and ultimately the United States as well, and to be the world's greatest state sponsor of terror. It is just an unacceptable situation. When the president said, there we go again, you hear it, we're not going to put up with it anymore. That very much resonated with all Israelis. We were deeply impressed and I think moved by his remarks.
Now, when that happens, what do you have to go to a shelter? I mean, what is the process there?
Well, that comes off my cell phone, and that is to say that there's an attack underway somewhere in Israel. If it's in our area, we will hear a siren shortly.
Got it.
And on the next room is my safe room where, well, we have food, water, and very thick walls.
Wow. One more thing. You know, we hear from officials, Israeli and U.S., that Iran is at its weakest point, that the Iranian proxies are weak at this current point. But to your previous point, there are still terrorist proxies that have sleeper cells around the world. Are you worried that this is going to trigger some kind of response to go after civilians in other places, whether it's Israel or the U.S.?
We certainly have to be vigilant. And we know that Iran is incapable and in the past has demonstrated a willingness and ability to carry out terrorist attacks around the world. Listen, they tried to assassinate the President of the United States. They tried to assassinate the National Security Advisor, and they tried to assassinate yours truly in Washington, D.C., in the capital of the United States. This is the Iranian regime. So we have to be extremely, extremely vigilant about that. It's not just missiles. It's not just drones. It's also terrorist attacks. And we have to be very much aware of it.
Well, Ambassador, we wish you safety. Thank you for coming on. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you. More breaking news coverage of this historic strike on Iran, the implications of what's happening going further from here. Senator Tom Cotton joins us next as continuing coverage of the war happens here on Fox News Channel.
What will you do when the power goes out? Power outages can be unpredictable and inconvenient, but with a Generac home standby generator, your life goes on uninterrupted because you'll have power when you need it the most. Special financing and low monthly payment options are available. And if you call now, you will also receive a free 5-year warranty.
To a nuclear deal with Iran would appear to be a military conflict. Today, Iran and Russia conducted joint naval drills in the Gulf of Oman.
So, as talks with Iran's dictatorship go absolutely nowhere, those guys are teaming up with Russia to send a message to the United States that this isolated regime is not alone, even as they back themselves into a corner with their refusal to step down, perpetuating protests inside their country and around the world from those who want change, as well as triggering an unprecedented U.S. military buildup, which could soon have to face off with the Russians.
With the drums of war beating louder, in the Strait of Hormuz, Iran and Russia held live-fire naval exercises, which included vessel raids and ship seizures.
Why do they need an intercontinental ballistic missile? That's a missile that goes far. The reason is so they have the ability to attack the United States. So why are they spending billions of dollars to create that missile? It isn't for Israel and it isn't for Europe, it's for us.
Well, Iran, as usual, keeps thinking they can get away with it, that America isn't watching. And this posturing for war, I think, is a major mistake on behalf of the Iranians. The history shows it only ends badly for them.
The U.S. is engaged in the largest military buildup in the Middle East since the eve of the Iraq War. F-15 fighter jets, stealth F-35s, KC-135 refueling tankers, and a squadron of F-22 Raptors.
As Trump said, 15 days, we're going to get a deal one way or another. And Trump has been very careful to say there's one way that's got consequence that they don't want. He was very clear about that.
So apparently, China was also involved in these recent military drills with Iran and Russia. And what nobody's talking about is the gathering of these three regimes in one place. It's not an accident whatsoever, as Iran is the last puppet state